Imagine that you can, like I said, buy a device that is being um, utilized by more than one family, and they can utilize micropayments to pay for time when we are using it.
Welcome to X6IM podcast, where we discuss the power of decentralization in reshaping industries. And this is our second episode dedicated to a field of decentralized science. And our guest today is Mac from AxonDao, a DAO that envisions a world where medicine and science converge in real time. Mac, welcome. Thank you for coming. And I'm super excited to hear about your experience with DeSci and AxonDao.
Thank you so much for this invitation.
So, Mac, as you know, we are a podcast that focuses on decentralization. And I know you are very passionate about it. So I want to hear your thoughts on decentralization. What does it mean to you? And if you can perhaps define it. And as I said, there are no, right or wrong answers to it.
I'm passionate about it mostly because we see how we can take the discussions from just discussion to a real implementation. Because when you talk, we can talk the talk, but you should walk the walk. And in this case, it's about, well, you can call that decentralized science in healthcare started with telemedicine many years ago. Christopher has experiences. I do. I mean, Christopher is the creator of AxonDao, and my first telemedical platform was set up in 2007. Back then, this was with a mobile application written to for the Symbian phones, and the project lasted maybe 2 3 years. But we are like 15 almost years later, and or maybe a little bit more, and you can see that there's nothing special that happens in between. Not because we didn't have enough technology. I think we have 7 10 times more capabilities to make something really interesting and fun in terms of telemedicine, but no one has like a real idea how to make it in a way that people will use it. There is also a thing that there is not much money in telemedicine. When you have to pay for something like SaaS applications, you will be the first to pay for something maybe not shallow, but far from really important things in your life, but you will pay for that. And telemedicine and the healthcare is something that really can be brought to one subject. How can I make long-lasting outcomes from the research I do? Can I do the research as a non-scientific person? Yes, you can. Can I become a scientist if I have a brave, strange, odd, interesting idea about something? Maybe it's a healthcare, maybe it's a metallurgy, maybe soil. Yes, you can. And in terms of decentralization, everything that can be automated could be decentralized. Like you can have this. There is this word automata. I don't know even if it's a Spanish, if it's a Roman, but the thing is that anything that can be converted to automatic decision making something based on the incoming information that fulfills some kind of schematics, and at the end it gives out the decision yes, no, turn on 20% or shut it down or revert the flow to somewhere else. This is a automated system, decentralized. It makes something good. It makes always a good decision. It's not whether I should turn left or right to, I'm sorry, harm less people. It's just simple things. So you can decentralize this way many simple processes. I'm not talking about making millions of billions from the high frequency operations on the market share, things, but I'm talking about, for example, should I how fast should I switch off the lights on my corridor, or how much water should I use there, or if system can observe me how I utilize water in my home, it can, after a few days or a few weeks, said that, for example, you should change the tariffs and have this additional one that makes your spendings 15% lower because if you have your washing machine can start after 10 p.m., or you can utilize the water in your garden using this or that approach, or you should invest in, let's say, collecting rainwater and you know fill your garden with the rainwater without utilizing the paid water. So basically, decentralization is everywhere where we can reduce the footprint of spendings, reduce the amount of things that we buy, speed up decisions that can make a real change in terms of our environment, our well-being, the society we are creating on the lowest levels, like this micro society, my neighbors, like my people who are surrounding me. I can buy, for example, a device and help five of my neighbors or rent it to them, give them for free just to use it. And this is a kind of decentralized operation. I think that not much people are really ready for that because we get used to the situation where we are completely alone in the process of maintaining our surrounding or our daily operations. And here with decentralized approach, I can imagine that you can, like I said, buy a device that is being um, utilized by more than one family, and they can utilize micropayments to pay for time when we are using it. And then after all, it can go back to the place where it's accessible to everyone. And still, it's not a kind of communistic approach. You will pay for that, but you will also care for this. So decentralization has so many phases in terms of how you will implement it. I think anything that can be automated, from very simple things to more complicated later, it will always means that you are you can expect, you can foresee, what will be at the end of some processes. So there is no like emotional decisions involved. You see how the protocol works. You can even publish the protocol behind the decentralized organization or product, service, anything, and you will always know that 2 plus 2 will give you 4 at the end.
Wow, that was a very interesting answer. So you essentially saying that this small automated processes can be decentralized, right? Is that like if you were to put it in one sentence, how would you say it again?
Anything that can be automated can be decentralized. When you think about how technically to make it happen, um, I'm trying to, I'm very straightforward. Maybe it's a kind of spectrum or something. I was invited some time ago on a space where people were discussing about AI agents, and they were so entertained by the idea of large language models that there was like no discussion about anything else. And I was like, I'm sorry, but agent AI agent doesn't have to be AI. First of all, it can be just like a yes/no statistical model that just based on the facts that we know make this decision. If the value is between that kind of range, we do this. Like I'm kind of smartass here because my father was a creator of simulators, like a engine simulators, ship simulators, and it was maybe 80s, and I was like a little boy, and he was telling me about expertise systems where you are, for example, analyzing the quality, the well-being of an engine in a ship, and you have tables or you have some kind of computer and you put how many RPMs, this much, how is the noise around this place, this decibels, and systems like check the level of fluid that is cooling down this kind of part of the engine, and oh, it's too low, add 50 milliliters of this substrate here, and then systems like how the level of noise is on this point, now it's this one, okay, you prove it, like it's working fine. Usually decentralized systems, they are equipped and maintained, those agents that are working on behalf of automating some decisions, they are very simple. If you will look at the population of all AI applications we have on this planet, I would say that probably in terms of the quantity, 97% are super simple. They call it dump AIs. I know it's harmful and unpleasant. Super simple AIs that are basically dedicated to make one single thing, to analyze input using the neural network, and at the end giving the output. Look at the how we are analyzing the blockchain, how we are analyzing the transactions. The process of mathematical computation behind the mining blockchain, Bitcoin, is simple enough that some people created ASIC processors, and they are in the Bitcoin mining computers. And this processor is making computations with just that maybe few different mathematical models, nothing else. And we call it ASIC because the mathematics that helps to support this decentralized process is physically engraved in this ASIC processor. If you will send him a message like, I don't know, open page, send something, he won't be able to do that. He's capable to do maybe five, four different things, and that's it. But it's crazy fast. And it's kind of decentralized mathematical model engraved in a processor that is making just this one thing. It's a dump AI in a case in this way. Yeah, and we are overcomplicating everything that can be automated, and in most cases, its decision making can be done by humans. And we are not that smart in terms of the capabilities of knowledge about the world we have around us. So if you, for example, have LLMs who are studying everything that was created by humans, it's not even that they know things. They make those balances, like Elon Musk said a few weeks ago or maybe 2 months ago. He said, "Well, AI is just a crazy large um, Excel file, like CSV file with wages. That's it. That's it. We spent millions to buy GPUs, build them into a factor of kind of AI, a computational factory. Even NVIDIA call it factory. H200, they call it like the AI factory. And we spent dozens, hundreds of millions to buy the equipment, push as much data into this equipment as possible, add some initial values to make some kind of predictive model behind it, and then we are collectively analyzing that stuff and have at the end some array, and then we are analyzing if it's like making some kind of smart answers or it's hallucinating. So when you look at the current AI's approach to make this something smart, it's we are, especially in those super duper complicated things, we are like a monkeys banging the drum in a forest, utilizing crazy amount of electricity and computers that costs hundreds of millions. And we are basically, it's like, let me just turn this a little bit and make the process again, and we will see what will happen at the end. It's a lot of noise, and someone said that if you will sit down like group of monkeys in front of the typewriter after 20 years of random clicking, they might write Shakespeare poem randomly. But it's a nonsense.
That's a brilliant breakdown. I think this was one of the most informative 10 minutes that I've ever had. Very interesting, and again, a very interesting take on decentralization. Obviously, a lot of things in AI you are debunking. I've spent some time looking at AI agents. Obviously, I don't have the background of understanding how they are built, but it's interesting what you are explaining. Okay, Mac, I'm going to pull you back a little bit into. I know you're extremely passionate about decentralized, everything decentralized. But so the reason why we're having the conversation today is around decentralized science, right? So I would love you to explain in simple terms what it is. So, what is decentralized science? Because not a lot of people actually understand and have heard of this um, term at all. So, if you can explain in simple words what it is, And how is it different from the centralized traditional science? What problems does decentralized science solve?
The same ones. Okay, coming back, decentralized science is, I'm using this kind of counter explanation in one sentence. It's like a venture capital for research. It's like decentralized venture capital for research and then you can put different types of areas you would like to investigate. We are doing in AxonDao healthcare, but it can be like a shipbuilding, I don't know, soil management, agriculture, anything. Key issues that we have now. One thing that we didn't touch at AxonDao, and it's too general to even start with, is how we manage the knowledge. And I will this time try to be very short with answer because we can come back to this. Um, but the thing is that I'd like to, in my life, in this life, I'd like to slow down or even reduce to zero the chances that someone is working on things that were already investigated and found out. If I can make at least, half of the research processes into analyzing whether it was already verified and if we can build something new upon the things that were already investigated, it means that we will save crazy amount of time of research. And even it's not about money that I'm not even concerned about how much costs to run the research operations. It's about those people at the end who will maybe at some point of time will join the group of becoming doctors, PhDs. There must be some kind of purpose in our lives. And if you I was there, like as a student, I found out that I'm trying to build autonomous weather station. I'm a physicist, and the weather station was a kind of automata, like a driven by electronics set of sensors who are observing the nature in certain point and trying to build a network of such stations. And at a point of time, I found out that there were projects like this before me. It was 1997, and I felt like, well, did I make this from scratch? I should look at them and just investigate what was good from those ideas and what failed and build upon this. The second thing in decentralized science is we are not fighting against academia. It's just idiotic. If someone is saying stuff like that, it's a dead end. The idea is that we need academia to educate scientists. The whole educational process will be modifying itself, but it's not going to be a revolution. It's going to be evolutionary process. But at the end, we have people who are becoming researchers. Some of them are absolutely not educated anywhere. They just self-taught, and they are also a special group of really amazing people. And you have some researchers that comes out from the academia. But the system of technology transfer and spin-off, which is kind of how to mm, commercialize your findings, is created in a way that majority of the ownership in this technology that someone invented is taken by the academia or technology transfer center. You can explain this in many ways. The same thing, thus the venture capital. And it's fine. You can agree on this or not. And before decentralized science, I'm touching this subject in general, like not only in healthcare. We were meant to utilize VC or academia money or our own money. If you don't have your own money, you will go to academia. It will take slower time. If you go to the VC, maybe it's going to be faster, but they will take most of the ownership from you by utilizing the same arguments. And I understand it's a business. So decentralized science is mainly about also decentralized organization is after understanding your idea and finding that it might be monetizable, it's also about business. Decentralized science is investing in your idea but the majority of the ownership of this idea stays with you. And that's the kind of revolutionary change. AxonDao, I mean, I don't want to talk about, certain projects and certain split outs, but before in any kind of decentralized investment will take part in decentralized science, we have discussion with the people who are coming up with ideas. How much are you willing to give away to organization and community? How much you want to stay with you? Let's imagine that we have a system and we agree on a split. You will keep the 60, 70% of the IP on you, like a scientist, like an inventor. Organization will take 20%. It means that before that decision, we will find out how much we have to invest in your idea, what will be the outcomes, how much it will be take us to make this as a product that really works, and we can try to monetize your idea. And then we are leaving part of this ownership of this project to be taken by the community, which is also a cool idea. So if you are upkeeping 70% of the idea, let's say the decentralized science project will take 20%. This project will know how much it must to be invested to make your product idea working. So let's say I know I have to spend 40,000, 50, $100,000 to make a prototype, to make a simple SaaS solution. It will be operational and I can look in the meantime for the first clients. I will spend some time and money for the marketing. It will cost me in total 80,000, and maybe at the end it will become net positive, then my 20% is a good enough for me to be happy because I will pay off my investment in maybe 7 months, 4 months. The more successful the investment will be, the faster I will pay it off. But on top of that, there is the scientist who is a main owner of this technology. And from this point of time, there might be venture capital investment companies. The decentralized science organization can organize, for example, the bridge round or maybe round A, bring maybe five, maybe $10 million to scale up your idea and make the researcher really the center of the income process. So people who has a bright ideas, they are really rewarded from the idea they created. I think that that's the first thing. And the last thing is that if we will leave 10% that can be taken of the ownership that can be taken by the general population who is like observing, following certain DeSci projects or organizations, they keep the governance token, they are fans of the idea. You can exchange your tokens, the governance tokens, onto the ownership of this certain project, which means that, for example, if I would have capability to become a small owner of SpaceX or Starlink, I would love to do so. I was unable, and it's okay. Elon has his own idea. He didn't want to have that kind of side investors. Those are really serious things. But I can imagine that there's like, for example, Ed Bourgeois. He's working with soil, and he's making some kind of ingredient that can revive the quality of your soil fast. And this ingredient is biodegradable, and it's not a big pharma. He's doing something interesting. He has first 500 clients. He needs to be invested. I'd love to have like a part of this research project and become co-owner. And it also rewards the creator of this technology, so he knows who invested how much. Before the investment, each one of those people has to go through the KYC because we are working only aligned with the laws. So, but still, you can sell your ownership, you can buy more. It's like it's amazing.
Very interesting points. So if I were to summarize it, you essentially are saying that what decentralized science is helping to solve is the first one is the knowledge, right? Um, so am I understanding it correct that there is no unified, let's call it platform, that can say, well, okay, a research on this topic was done, so there's no point, you know, doing it, redoing it again, right? If you want to research on that, you can take this as an example and, research some other maybe possibilities, right? Is that what you were saying with the first one?
And it will take a lot of time to make something like this. Nowadays, you can first of all go to the technology transfer center that is like a government institution, university institution, or private institution, and try to make some research with them whether my idea is new or really something fresh or not. You can also go to the patent office or study yourself patents, and verify that. And it's okay, but in the long run, there is not like a kind of, if LLMs are something that we like, and we do, because we, for example, can chit chat with, let's say, Claude AI and find something that we haven't heard of before, and he can make like educative suggestions around the subjects that we are interested and help us to maybe understand the reality more. There is nothing that could answer such questions in terms of, I have this idea and I'd like to make some product for, I don't know, bicycle, and it's going to improve this or that. There is no place, and I don't see anything that could become something like that fast. And I feel like what we can do, of course, we can utilize LLMs, but in the perfect world, and this is like a side project I'm working on maybe last 7 or 10 years, it's to build something I'm calling Science 4.0, which is a kind of decentralized information system where people like us, even, I mean, not only scientists, but media, decentralized organizations can research, find something that might be match or, new um, horizon to be investigated. But it's about also collecting the knowledge. So you go to encyclopedia, you go to Wikipedia, you go somewhere. If you have, for example, want to build a decentralized system of weather stations, of course you will study that. Some people, like, let's say, kids, they are interested in some subject, and with their parents they are, let's go to a museum, let's see this observatory, let's read this book, let's buy this book, let's understand how, let's say, space weather works. And kids are, it takes years for them to engraved in certain area of some kind of research. It can be art, it can be poetry, it can be something physical. But in the long run, I'm thinking about how we can reduce the overspending of energy, like also just the capital of our intellectual, energy, to start really focusing on things that lacks of that kind of help. It's really interesting, and I'm trying to even not maybe avoid the discussion about how we will manage knowledge, but it's a probably question that will be answered in the iterations of maybe hundreds of steps, and it maybe take 5 to 20 years, because every scientist can have his own opinion how to make it right. Maybe at the end there will be some crazy guy or girl coming up from academia who decided to leave the school, and he will do something in his cellar, in his room, and it will be working perfectly and will answer this question without understanding how it really works, which is still fine, as much as it's like efficient. It makes this process automated, and at the end there are results are valuable, like without any kind of second thoughts. They are just valuable. We are draining, we are flooded with information. We are flooded with information. There is not much solid knowledge about it, and not mentioning the wisdom.
I see these are very useful points, especially about the funding that you mentioned and the ownership for the researchers, right? And I don't think people outside of this field actually do understand. So it's very good that you have explained, the funding process and that researchers in traditional science are not actually, um, I wouldn't say honored, but they're not getting as much as they could with the decentralized science. So, yes, interesting. But my next question is, how did you get involved with DeSci? And you mentioned obviously that you are a physicist. So, what is your background?
I'm a physicist, and most of my life I was basically building software. And for the last 15, 20 years, it was usually and later on mostly only software for healthcare, for pharma, for biotechnology. And in 2006, I was having my own software house in my I'm sorry, in my hometown, and it was working really well. And I wanted to do more, and found out back then about something that we are calling industry clusters, which is like a usually organization created as a non like government or university organization that is collecting most of the companies from the certain industry from the certain area of geographical area, and trying to build like a functioning uh, business model intercooperational structure between those companies for the greater financial good that can also be utilized to build a non-functional outcomes and investments also for the community good, or making some additional projects that can be utilized by to improve, to automate local processes, to make them more efficient, to reduce the spendings, to this way also make people more happy about the structures they have to utilize on a daily basis. And I created my first cluster in 2007. It was ICT Pomerania. It was about informatics, telecommunication, and electronics, and it was working really well. We didn't have back then. There was no information about blockchain, about decentralized operations. Probably we were thinking. I was thinking about it in terms of how to decentralize decisions, but there was no blockchain, and it's about cooperation of competitors. We call it co-opetition. Even here, I mean, making long story short, I was always into making some kind of bigger structure. And I remember that when I was studying physics, it was hard for me. I was going through this. I think it was not that good decision to be made at that young age. But in 2001 or maybe 2000, I found this article in Scientific American that basically slapped my face so profoundly I couldn't stop myself. I remember I was sitting in the library in my university, and the article was about semantic web, how we can make automated decisions based on the knowledge that is kept in some kind of easy to understand for AI agents, for agents data structures. So, for example, I can allow such an agent or group of agents to have an access to my calendar and make some plans, like find me a doctor who is not further than this much from my home, and taking the the time best route to take my mom to some, and the article was very easily explained. They have some kind of they were making those trials with automated autonomous submarines, like small ones in the kind of group of ponds interconnected by small rivers, and they were giving them some kind of tasks, and those submarines were swimming in those pools in between and bringing some kind of buoy from one place to another, like making a reasonable decisions within the scope of the algorithm they had, and acting as a group of agents, like cooperating autonomously. And I remember I was stoned. I couldn't stop myself. I was feeling that I was so angry that I'm on physics, that I'm touching this even space of reality. But in the long run, decentralized science is just is that. It's about How can we invest in a very rapid way using communities who are understanding, for example, a problem with soil or problem with health or problem with anything you can imagine, how we envision what is healthy in terms of food. You can automate this and bring it to widespread communities. One of the projects I'm building is Cure OS, Cure Operating System, and it's like sometimes it's a funny thing. You have your head is in something other people would call future, and your body is here. And for example, if you are trying to make your well-being better, you are using 7, 10 different applications, or maybe few of them, and they are not interconnected. Not mentioning they are not collecting the data about you in one place. But the model, the SaaS model, software as an application, also is kind of outdated. That's why we should utilize agent-based approach. I'm collecting my data. It's in my vault. It's digital. I can print it out. I can save it as a CSV file. It's behind the password. No one can access this data. And if the data I'm collecting is, in terms of the quality, good enough to perform some agent computations on this, I could look at some kind of marketplace inside of this application. And for example, there is this agent that can say something about my stress level based on how many steps and my heart rate I'm doing on a daily basis. I'd like to utilize this agent. And I'm like giving him access to my data and allowing him to make those computations. It makes the computations come back to my wallet, my health wallet, and I can see the outcomes. And if I feel like I don't like this agent or I feel like it's not good enough, I'm just disconnecting this agent from my data and I'm still like owner of my castle. I paid for computations. I don't have to pay like the continuously for some kind of subscription. Raise your hand if you have less than 5 subscriptions on your bank account. Usually we don't control how much we spend on a monthly basis on those things. And just imagine that the researcher is working mostly on creating an algorithm in his niche. Algorithm or some kind of set of processes that you have to do to make the decision on behalf of his knowledge. He needs the data. This is his algorithm. He doesn't have to build the whole car. He just make the best program that can operate different parts of this car, which is perfect. Like how many times you have to build the same firmware for the car if someone made already something perfect and you can just extend this firmware with additional features. So whether it's a management of your home, automated, I don't know, heat temperature sensor, or utilizing the water, or of your own health, your car, your family, I don't know, managing the weekend meeting with your friends somewhere in the countryside, and I don't know, renting a fireplace and bringing some food. You can also automate part of this to make a secure and fun time without having second thoughts and 5 different people bringing the same type of food. Just a simple explanation. But decentralization and decentralized science means that people who have really amazing ideas will be visible. Like they don't have to pay for the marketing. They don't have to convince venture capital or their academia. Can I show this to the world? One of my colleagues, he's not my friend, we just know each other from the university. He created insulation foam for homes that is made from algae, from this green thing that you can find in the water. You don't have to use plastic with this kind of special something that you spray and it grows and it's really toxic. If you will, breathe in this stuff, it can kill you because you can clog your lungs. But even we don't know if it in long term how it's good for our bodies when we are living in a home filled with the foam like this. And he has this algae for free. The outcome is the same product, but it's completely non-toxic and you can use it. And probably if he would like to go with this as a product to the market, he will have to pay for verification if it's easy to be, how much it will sustain the fire, the toxicity, the biocompatibility, many different things. Probably it might cost like $7,000, $15,000, and he's like overwhelmed with the amount of things that he has to go through. But if you can imagine the centralized organization that is investing in, let's say, household technologies around the home, they could tell him, hey, we will take 20% of your idea or 30%, depends how they will discuss that. But we will pay for all those things. We have this one and that one expert. They are our advisors, and they know how to manage the products that can be sell on the, you know Home Depot type stores, and we will help you. We will make a product out of this. And then suddenly, for example, there is this movement of moon wood in Germany. People are laughing at this, but technically, if you will cut the tree on the certain moment in terms of correlation between the full moon, it has different properties. It's just a pure physics, and people are not even considering that. And there is like a kind of large industry in Germany because they didn't try to convince the others. They just made a product that has such a high quality from the same wood you will utilize for yourself. But they cut the trees in a certain amount, in a certain day after the full moon, and that's it. They don't explain if it's like a witchcraft or, I don't know, some kind of I don't know. It's just a well thought process by some guy who felt like there is a colligation between those things, and it's true. And when you ask what kind of buildings are utilizing the wood created from such a technology, for example, the National uh, Archives of Video Materials in Germany, because the buildings created this way has this kind of capacity to insulate the things that are inside without using special dedicated machines. It just works. Who would risk their own all the recorded materials from the history of your country? They did because they checked this on technically. So there are things that we should invest in. Decentralized science is basically venture capital for decentralized research equipped with crypto, with the blockchain and decentralized decision making processes, and it works. Now, currently, we are helping the two other projects, Poseidon DAO, which is about that dedicated solutions for making your body acting in a way on the cellular level, and we are starting cooperation with the project connected with soil. This means that we are not becoming an owners of this project. We want to build a group of like islands that are sovereign countries, but they are in some kind of archipelago, and we share the knowledge how to maintain such an organization to become net positive as fast as possible. But it means that people who are buying, tokens from such organizations, they can, of course, make decisions with them, but also it's possible for they can see what the such an organization is working on, and usually the communities behind those organizations are people who are not typical degens. They understand what we are doing. So if you will look at we are slowly growing like towards 20,000 followers on X. But if you will look at the reactions of the people, the comments, how they write, what they are writing on our Telegram, even if they are not KOLs, specialists, opinion leaders, they are really understanding where we are heading. They are, asking for writing themselves for the whitelist to become a testers of the applications, and they know what will be the outcomes. So it's like the centralized science has this one perfect thing that I really enjoy is that if you want to monetize on your creativity, on the you want to make your token become kind of valuable thing in the world of, let's say, crypto, you are, by creating community, you also create a culture within this community, and this culture makes the whole monetization process as a something that is understandable for every actor inside of this, especially community. because people want to pay to the creators, want to pay to the people who are making a new paradigm shift, but they need to be convinced. And with this culture, we don't have any kind of issues with explaining where we are heading, why we are doing this or that. People love what we do because we are like super transparent in terms of the way we think.
I would love you to explain what AxonDao is because like when I read your white paper, you were focusing on data, right? Um, so you have a whole array of things you're doing, right? So it's from data to funding, to obviously gathering community. So can you please explain like what are those things that you are doing? And then I will ask about the community because it's interesting because I believe that centralized science, not science, centralized medicine, let's say, I don't think it has a community as such, right? Um, it's like it's a tool, right, in our life.
So, making long story short, the Axon DAO is a project that started a few years ago, and it was trying to cooperate with already established DeSci growing super small group of projects. It didn't happen, and I've met Christopher last year, somewhere in April, while I was building the centralized system for monetization in game for game industry. Just the one comment. Web3 games will always fail. Why? Because really entertaining games are those we are calling Web2 games. So Counter-Strike, Dynablaster, multiplayer games. You can probably bring even super simple games that are most funny to play with, even with your kids. I'm referring to Dynablaster because it was always making us super laugh. It's like four players in the same time can just find some treasures and, well, become the last life one on the board. But if you will extend the Web2 game with token and people who can challenge themselves and monetize, like win or lose, and they know why they lost or they know why they win because they were really good, then it's really entertaining. I have nothing against crypto in games, absolutely, but it cannot be like focused only on NFTs that will give you something and basically it gives you nothing. It's a mumbling. It's illogical. There is no entertainment. So coming back to the Axon DAO, we I was introduced by someone and we were talking about me becoming kind of CTO because I had already created like a full stack system to maintain the community and bring some kind of reward system, project management, technical like a back office solutions. And we were discussing for a few months and then Christopher went to a spot that he was unsure if it's really will work out. And we made a restart of the Axon DAO, like the structure behind how it will work. In late November, I would say October, November, I was highly asking Christopher, you have to make decision this or that. And after that, it went really fast. So yeah, you can find that AxonDao is collecting the data, but whatever you will try to build, at the end, it's about results. And as a kind of now we are opinion leaders in this industry, and it's okay. We can be for some time. I'd love to see more really strong projects here with us with them. I don't have to be number one. We don't. It's like Elon Musk said. I don't want to be the main producer of electric cars in the world. For me, it is the most important thing is to make people understanding and bring more actors to this field, and this is how it goes. And he's still successful, by the way. So here we have the situation that we started with collecting the data. That was the one of the initial thoughts, but I was heavily putting the focus on define some kind of research that is easy to understand for the general audience, make a product out of this. If it fails, amazing. At least you can name the reasons why it failed, or become somehow maybe successful and become a product that can be utilized by general audience. In most cases, when you have crypto projects for the last X years, you've seen that someone was building one thing, like a one game, and it was one thing with the token, and that was it. In decentralized science, there is like a lot of it's like more vectors of freedom you have to take into consideration, which makes this kind of five-dimensional landscape you have to somehow tame and tackle with. It requires special type of imagination in terms of envisioning the process in the long run and dependencies in between. But AxonDao is about basically everything that is connected with research. It's not only about data. Data is just a part of everything. If I would just collect the data, it would be just a data collecting system solution. That's not enough. We don't want to be a layer in between different systems. There are things that sometimes we could utilize from third-party projects and utilize their technology with API they provide, and we do so. But in the most cases, you want to produce something that will become net positive. If you will find a brilliant researcher who has, he can be in a spectrum of autism, he can have, even issues with explaining what he do. But if he has a prototype and he can, show you this prototype and say, this is my device, it works. I don't know, how can I explain this? Or this like my design inside paper, and you can help him, you can make this as something that other people will use and will make them efficient. So it's not even about if AxonDao is collecting data. Of course it is collecting the data. If you want to make a research, you have to make prototype that will be proof that you will just go through some processes and you will find that it works. But if for example, you will look at the current state of research industry, especially in terms of the science of healthcare in this case, um, institutions like Nature that are publishing the papers and the whole process of publishing the paper, which is kind of lame. It's not unfair. It just time consuming. It takes years to publish your paper. Years? That's a counterproductive. It's not right. So they usually have, in some cases they are making, let's say, about microdosing, or how can you, for example, work with your stress related issues using the microdosing, for example. They have groups of 20, 15, 40 people. That's a small testing group. In case, for example, of the project called A plus Voice, it's about how we can analyze your voice and tell you something about your health in few different vectors. Now it's like 20 of them. But we have now 200 plus participants. We didn't pay for them. They, we have a research protocol. We are kept by IRB. It's an institution that is managing the quality of the research projects we do. So after all, we will be able to publish as a like a medical, like a factual scientific publication. We don't have to wait for approval of big pharma or anyone else. But this way we have this we verticalized process inside of the DeSci organization. And it's a perfect situation. For example, I should not say that, but you have some people have some issues with spine, with their backbone spine. And we are helping to build, I hope it's going to happen, a DAO around spine issues. And there is a group of 50 neuro experts in terms of the spine. Even in our project, we have one of our advisors is one of the pretty well-known uh, specialists in terms of the spine chirurgy. And this means that we can help them to build this organization, their island, leave them with all tools that we have, support them in first few research projects, and they will become completely sovereign, self-sustainable, maybe even produce something, create something that can be utilized with spine of each one of us if we will have such issues. And that knowledge is not a magic. This is like, if you will think about it in long term, there was this movement of not even hackathons, it was a movement of hacker spaces that you are building in a certain place of the city, like a something like a laboratory. You have a different tools to build something, and there are people who are working there to ensure that no one will harm yourself. But you have CNC, you have 3D printers, you have, I don't know, blade saws and different equipment that you can use to build your prototype, whether it's just something to carry on flowers or something more complicated. There are places where you can just build something. And imagine that we have a new methodology of caring for spine, and you have like 500 educated experts by this kind of DAO, and you have something we are calling micro hospital that you can arrange basically in every hospital worldwide and perform 20, 50, 100 surgeries in the term in the in the 5 weeks, and move on to another place and just build more knowledge around this process. It's going to be net positive, and in the same time we will speed up the research around the spine tremendously, because you have 50 experts who likes the approach of how it's being funded. The way they think is not decentralized. They are researchers, but decentralization helps them to make something that can be implemented in the next few months, few years. They don't have to. You don't have to wait next 30 years. Why we still don't have anything that takes care about HIV? How many years it should takes more? Like, there is something wrong with this industry in terms of how it works. So you can make rapid research with the same quality and bring a products to the general audience that really makes change our life.
I see. So the last sentence you said, is it how you would define what AxonDao is doing? Because the reason why I brought up uh, data is for me as a consumer, when I was reading your white paper, I definitely what stood out for me was that it said there that an average person, they obviously have their data, be it collected through devices, be it through the blood test, whatever, ho- however this data was collected, and that this data could be worth $1,500. And that got me excited. And I thought, well, I've never received my $1,500. So this is why I thought that, this is one of the things that AxonDao could potentially be working on, as how do you, democratize this data, and how do I get paid for the data that I'm providing through the means?
Yeah, of course. Everything is about scale, and you might observe such a statements for the last 10 years. Many projects were saying something about that, and they just disappear in a fog of time. It never happened. It's not even about the if they were having a good idea or not. It's about the scale of operations. So, for example, if you are making a clinical trials as a big corporation of your product, you go to the specific private companies who will charge you with huge bills to find you a test groups for your treatment. And it's fine. It's absolutely legit. Sometimes it's my dog. Hello, my little son. So sometimes it's enough, and in most cases it's enough. But like we spoke before about neuro research and influence of light and quality of water, sometimes you don't have to go to the physical operation, or usually it's not about making a big investments in fixing something inside of you, like going through the surgery. Of course, some cases are you have to go that, and that's something, no discussion about it. But sometimes you can just change one thing in your life and improve it. I'm using this word tremendously, tremendously. So the thing is, if you can, for example, drink better water, or with some kind of act of smart decision, spend more time outside on, utilizing yourself, being exposed to the sunlight, and it costs nothing, and it first of all makes your body more healthy on the cellular level, because it's all about cells in our body, how we are treating it. It's not even about quality of the food, it's about how you are inducing and working with the membrane that is keeping the cell working efficiently. That this membrane is a thing. The question was about how we collect the data. But yeah, just imagine that for the next year or maybe 2 years, you collect the data, and the system that helps you to collect your data about yourself is also explaining you how to collect this data so it will be quality enough that first of all the collected data set will serve you to answer some questions or give you some kind of suggestions, but also if it's collected in a proper way, it might serve the other organizations. So if you are collecting the data, it's yours, and you collected, for example, steps and heart rate in a proper quality, like let's say 4 days in a week at least. And for example, you are using one of our newest project, it's a Cure ring. It's a smart ring that it has like a 4 days longevity. You just have to charge it from time to time. And with CureOS application, it just collect the data in your health data wallet, like a vault. But
Okay.
if you are collecting the data about you, I'm not even referring to this. It can be anything, like a blood test you are making twice a year. Just to have this kind of data about you, and you collected 7 or 10 tests in last 3 4 years. Every doctor with these can make some kind of educational guess about your health without some kind of list of tests that were performed in last few years. He will make you do this again. Like if you have some cardiovascular issues, he will tell you go your home and for the next 2 weeks record your blood pressure in the morning, in the center of the day, and the end of the day, so he can make some decision. If you have such a data in your vault, you can sell it or give a paid access to people who are interested in this data. But of course, they are not looking only for your data. And the data, by the way, needs to be anonymized. That's easy. But if we can make organization that collects data of 1,000 people, 5,000, 10,000 people, let's say from one country or one continent, and we can approve that the data itself has the value they are looking for, then they would love to rent the data, anonymized data of those 5, 10,000 people to make their own research based on that. And this is where you would be paid for your data, but only if you will agree to share the data with them. That's the case. In a situation where we are, like Facebook, Google, Apple, they are just taking your data and they don't give rat about it. They will just utilize it on their research, and it has value, and they will sell the results of those research. There are companies like IMS Health, now they are calling IQVIA, and it's fine. They are making market research about healthcare systems, and they are collecting the data from pharmacies, from patients, just to, for example, make a report for big pharma company and tell them this year you have to start selling flu influenza products, I don't know, this or that time. And pharma companies pays millions for a report like that. Millions. But no one pays to people who are collecting the data, who are generating the data. Your data has value, but of course, if you have a group of 5 people, maybe it's not good enough to present something about this population. But if the centralized project or some product allows you to, for example, collect or build up the community of couple dozens of thousands of people who are collecting certain data, and they would be willing, each one of them personally, like make decisions or yes or no, to share it, and sometimes share it for free, or maybe it's going to be paid share, you will be paid, because we will not allow anyone to have an access to your data. You will not give this access. We are not even controlling your data to share it elsewhere without being paid in before that. And that's how it goes. And it's technically very easy to manage.
So, what is right now with AxonDao in the pipeline, and like the projects that you're working right now, and if you have anything in the pipeline?
Oh, we have a lot, but the main thing is for now, it's probably CureOS and A plus Voice. A plus Voice is in the research phase. This technology from A plus Voice will be utilized for silosis, which is about investigating microdosing voice biomarkers. We want to cooperate with the ultrasound researcher Sterling Cooley, and the same technology will be also utilized there. So by doing one research project, we can run at least two additional ones without making the same spending again, which is remarkable. But I think that we are now focusing on Cure OS, and I would love to talk about this in the future, or at least make some kind of open discussion about how the future of personal healthcare, lifestyle, health management will look like, because it looks like I feel that Cure OS is a kind of, I was making telemedicine projects in my life, few of them, and this is like I don't think that there is something better that we can do in next 100 years in terms of the logic and how smart it is and how it is adapted to the reality of every human on this planet. I think that the last stance would be some kind of solution that you are connecting to your neural system, and it takes all data about your health directly from your neural system. I don't see anything better than this. So I think that CureOS is the peak of anything we do now, and it's going to be kind of healthcare diary, which is a vault of private data. You can now we implemented integration with Google Health, so we can pull out anything that was collected in by Google to your private vault. We will make the same thing with at least 30 different other projects like Garmin, Brewer, Oura, Apple Health Kit. We have a list of maybe even 30 different brands that we can pull the data out from them and implement them in the CureOS system, which is not only the vault of your data, but is going to present the data in some kind of history of your health. So when the doctor would like to understand how is your health, what was happening in your life in terms of your health, we want to make something like a presentation that is showing your history of your health, which is allowing them to make really very wise decisions what to do now if you have some issues here or there. Especially that the illnesses of your family tree are inducing your uh, possible issues. So usually we don't remember that, or we don't collect that in our memory. It's a time to collect this whole information in one place, in one system, that makes you being absolutely aware where can you go in terms of the wrong things around your health, and how you can beforehand prepare yourself for that.
Very interesting. I think we need to have a second session also and discuss curious and a very interesting topic you brought up about the personalization of the data and how it analyzes your data. And I have a lot of questions, especially like, do you need to have, um,
10 different applications.
yeah, like, do doctors need to be trained up in a certain way, for example, like how centralized medicine will have to
It,
clash with this?
we will not make changes in centralized medicine. We will just provide them better data set about yourself.
But they sometimes might not know how to use this data, for
Oh,
example.
then they are not well educated doctors.